What if your mind isn't yours anymore, but a crowded room anyone can walk into? Welcome to Stoic Dhamma, where ancient wisdom meets the chaos of modern life gently. Today, we begin somewhere familiar. You're stepping off a crowded subway. The air feels thick, phones ring, notifications buzz. The world pulls you in every direction. The mind, though seated in your body, is sprinting across 20 digital landscapes at once. Maybe you pause for a moment in a park, just a second, between two meetings, between two breaths. But even in that stillness, your mind keeps moving. Raja Yoga and Stoicism both teach you to live from that sky, not the storm. So, are you ready? Let's walk together through the noise, not away from it, and discover the quiet that never left. Thoughts swirl like traffic at rush hour. Memories, emails, opinions, reminders blurring into one stream of noise. And somewhere in the middle of it all, a quiet voice asks, "Is there a way back to myself?" You've heard about meditation? Maybe you've tried it. You sit down, cross-legged, you breathe, and within 30 seconds, you're wondering if you're doing it right. Epictetus taught his philosophy not from a mountain retreat, but in the heart of Roman society, surrounded by chaos. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations not in the calm of a temple, but on the battlefront, among disease and unrest. You peek at the clock. Only 2 minutes. You'll discover why meditation is not about escaping life, but meeting it with greater clarity. And why 3 mindful minutes each day can become a fortress in the storm. You feel restless, like trying to calm a river with a paper cup. And eventually, you decide, maybe I'm just too busy to meditate. But what if the problem isn't that you're too busy? What if the real problem is the way we think about stillness? Raja Yoga, an ancient path of inner mastery, was never meant to be practiced in a cave, far from the world, and neither was Stoicism. In today's story, we will explore how these two traditions, Raja Yoga from the East and Stoicism from the West, intertwine in their call for inner sovereignty. We'll look at how ancient philosophers practiced stillness not in silence, but amidst conflict, how the Stoics trained their attention like monks trained breath, how a simple pause before reacting can be more powerful than an hour of chanting, and how you, even in the middle of a deadline or commute, can step into that space of clarity. This is not a video that tells you to relax. This is an invitation to reframe the world not by changing it, but by learning how to sit still within it. Imagine your mind as a sky, vast and open. Your thoughts are clouds, some drift, some storm. But the sky itself is untouched. Imagine a crowded intersection at dusk. Horns honk in frustrated rhythms. Pedestrians hurry past glowing shop fronts, heads down, fingers typing mid-stride. But the essence of meditation isn't the absence of movement. It's the presence of mind. It's awareness with an action. Raja Yoga doesn't ask you to withdraw from life. And yet, in this swirl of interruption, you pause. Yamas and niyamas, ethical principles, asana posture, pranayama breath, pratyahara sense withdrawal, dharana focus, dhyana meditation, and samadhi integration. Together, they support you wherever you are. His writings show a man who turned inward not to escape, but to stay. Washing rice, folding robes, drawing water, each action becomes an opportunity for awareness. The movement doesn't disturb the mind, it reveals it. He warned against mental scattering, just as the yogic texts warn against the chitta-vritti, the turbulence of mind. The goal is not to empty the mind, but to still its waves. So, we can see clearly. So, we can act wisely. This is pratyahara in action, not closing off the senses, but choosing how you respond to them. Then, suddenly, you choose to notice your steps. You don't need to delete all your apps. You need 3 minutes. Instead of reacting, pause. Listen to your breath. Ask yourself, is this worth my peace? That 1 second of pause is the seed of awareness. A Stoic might call it restraint. A yogi calls it presence. Either way, it's freedom. 3 breaths. 1 pause before your next reaction. Raja Yoga doesn't ask for perfection. It asks for return. Stoicism doesn't ask for coldness. It asks for perspective. Both are choosing not to be moved by every gust of emotion. They don't seek stillness far away. They bring it with them, wherever they go. Feel your feet. Watch your breath. You don't stop walking, but your awareness walks beside you. Wherever you are, you're not removed from the world. You simply re-entered it fully, into work, into family, into city streets and scrolling screens, and every time you choose it you strengthen the path. From practicing while living, from breathing deeply in the grocery line, from stepping back during a hard conversation, from choosing not to send that impulsive message, from observing yourself even as you act, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That's not retreat. That's presence, not to control the flame, but to witness it. Begin not with hours, but with seconds. Choose one moment each day to stop, to breathe, to return. Let that be your temple. Let your breath be your bell. Let your awareness be your teacher. Later, they are asked to hold that same stillness as they move through their day. When the mind wanders, return to the flame, even when it's just in memory. Raja Yoga and Stoicism both teach this. Awareness is currency. Spend it wisely, on what you can shape, on what leads to peace. Not on every distraction the world throws your way. You do not rush, you inhale, you soften, and you respond not from tension, but from awareness. That pause, that's meditation, that's training. It asks you to return to it with your eyes open and your mind anchored. It's your sanctuary. It travels with you, into arguments, into meetings, into heartache. It is where you pause, breathe, and remember, this is not in my control, but my response is. Somewhere in that swirl of movement, a person stands still, not out of confusion, but out of choice. It is not about building walls between you and the world. It is about no longer being ruled by the world's pull. Stoicism says something similar. Epictetus reminds us that freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. They practice premeditatio malorum, rehearsing adversity in the mind. They journaled, not to indulge their emotions, but to review them with clarity. They paused before judgment. They trained the muscle of attention, not just in temples of philosophy, but in cities, in battle, in governing empires. Their eyes close briefly, breath slows, posture softens. They are not removed from the world, but rooted within it. Like the calm center of a turning wheel. This is Raja Yoga. This is Stoicism. We often think of meditation as something that exists far from daily life, something you do on a mat, in a room with incense, behind closed eyes. The Yoga Sutras call this the royal path, not because it is fancy, but because it leads to sovereignty over one's mind. Let's picture a common modern moment. You're in a noisy office, notifications ping, emails arrive faster than you can respond. A colleague complains loudly nearby. Raja Yoga is a system of 8 limbs. But these are not steps to follow on a quiet morning. They read tools to carry into the marketplace. The Stoics, too, had their structure. Marcus Aurelius did not meditate in seclusion. He did so intense during war. Surrounded by politics, illness, uncertainty. In Indian ashrams, monks learned to meditate not only during morning silence, but while performing daily chores. Your attention is your most precious resource. Each thought you indulge, each impulse you follow, it costs you presence. Seneca once said, "To be everywhere is to be nowhere." Imagine you're walking to lunch. Cars rush by, thoughts race ahead. In a small temple near the Ganges, students of Raja Yoga are taught to hold their gaze on a candle flame for 3 minutes each morning. The Stoics had their own flame. It was the inner citadel, the part of you no one else can enter. You don't need to move to the mountains. Try this the next time your phone rings during a quiet moment. In both traditions, mastery comes not from isolation, but from integration. A Stoic and a yogi might walk the same street. One focuses on virtue, the other on union. But both are walking with awareness, and you can, too. Begin not with silence, but with noticing. Because stillness is not a place you reach, it's a practice you carry, the royal path of the self, the Stoic citadel within. The witness who watches gently and chooses wisely, that path begins now. Let's drift back for a moment, not just in mind, but in time. Picture a quiet stone courtyard in northern India, nearly 2,000 years ago. The heat rises gently from the earth, just as Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations. Look within. Within is the fountain of good, and it will ever bubble up, if thou wilt ever dig, across oceans, across language, to men speak the same language of silence. A teacher sits beneath a tree, surrounded by students. Among them, notes from an unknown student of Epictetus, describing a form of breath-focused contemplation, nearly identical to pranayama and Raja Yoga. No one knows how these two traditions, one born in Greece, the other in India, shared the same rhythm. No trade route carried the breath. Why does meditation rise again and again, like a buried river, across continents and eras? But the breath, perhaps, carried itself. His name is Patanjali. The scroll beside him contains the Yoga Sutras, inked by hand, with care, not to track their brilliance, but to capture their wandering thoughts. These are not idle movements. Each trace is an echo of a mantra, and each mantra is a practice of non-reactivity. Think of a soldier before battle, taking a breath. The yogis call it dhyana. The Stoics might call it ataraxia, uncheckable inner peace. The Buddhists speak of shamatha, calm abiding. And the ancient Celts even had a word, a namcharsal, friendship. A state where you befriend your own mind again. A mother pausing before she speaks to her child in anger. An inner flame, steady and quiet, that does not flicker with every breeze. To remember what it means to be truly alive, both Patanjali and Marcus speak to it. So does every old monk, every quiet philosopher. This flame is the one who watches your thoughts and says, "You are not them." This flame is what keeps you steady when everything outside is moving. A commuter closing their eyes in a packed train. These are modern meditations. Not mystical but meaningful, not removed but real. What if making tea in silence could be a sacred act? What if your daily walk could become a pilgrimage? What if writing one sentence in a notebook each morning could tether you to a vast, ancient river of thinkers, watchers, feelers, who dared to slow down? In stillness, they teach, is where the real world begins. Marcus Aurelius never intended his meditations for publication. He wrote them to himself, an emperor, on the edge of exhaustion, asking his own soul to return. Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul. He writes, and you can feel the ache behind the pen. In early Roman courts, Stoic senators were known to carry tokens in their hands, stones, or carved wood, to ground themselves in silence during public debate. These were not tools of superstition, they were reminders. Be here. Be clear, be still, even as you move. The human mind, left alone, races. Left untrained, it floods with reactions. But when we repeat, when we pray, breathe, chant, walk with awareness, the repetition creates a rhythm. And in rhythm, the mind finds its home. Offerings were placed not just in temples, but in the mind. A clean, steady breath was a form of prayer. A silent gaze toward the morning sun, a kind of devotion. Here again, silence becomes sacred, not for what it lacks but for what it makes possible. In it, a single verse offers a key to all mental peace. Yoga is the stilling of the fluctuations of the mind. These are not just poetic words, they're instructions. A blueprint for inner engineering. Patanjali's sutras do not ask you to believe, they ask you to observe. But how did such ideas take hold in daily culture? How did sitting still become a sacred act passed down through generations, across temples and battlefields? In Japan, Zen monks polish floors with bowed heads, not because the floor must shine but because the motion, repeated with awareness, polishes the mind. It sounds simple, but in a heated moment, when someone cuts you off or insults you, not rushing to a conclusion is a sacred act. You pause, observe your anger, and let it pass like a wave. That moment of suspension is the Stoics' form of meditation. It is cultural memory encoded in the heart, not just the brain. In ancient Greece, Stoic students gathered not only in marble colonnades, but also in the market, where they practiced the same presence among the crowd. Raja Yoga, especially as developed in the Hindu tradition, is not merely philosophy, it is ritual, daily, lived ritual. The breath becomes a bridge, the gaze a doorway. Even silence becomes a language. In Varanasi, pilgrims sit silently on the steps of the Ganges before sunrise. They do not speak, they do not pray out loud, they witness. And in that witnessing, meditation becomes not something you do, but someone you become. In Stoicism, this same transformation happens through repetition. Take the practice of Epictetus with holding judgment. Now consider a mystery that has puzzled modern scholars. In 2008, a collection of handwritten Stoic texts from the 2nd century CE was uncovered in the sands of Egypt. In a Tibetan monastery, a bell rings every hour not to summon action, but to remind stillness. So why do all these ancient cultures point toward the same practice: silence, breath, stillness despite vast separation by geography and belief? Perhaps the answer lies not in religion, but in rhythm. This is why both Raja Yogis and Stoics kept journals. In the Balaman tradition of Vietnam and ancient Kampa, practitioners also meditated not as escape, but as honoring the divine in stillness. Even today, in the high plateaus of Ladakh, India, you'll find elderly monks tracing circles in the dust with their fingers slowly, endlessly. And what about the modern world? Has it forgotten this? Or does it still remember, in small, hidden ways? In every culture, there are words for this stillness. So, what is it that joins all of them? A flame? As we wrap this part of the journey, ask yourself, what rituals do I already have? Stillness, then, is not a loss, it is memory. Cultural, philosophical, human, not something you must find, but something you return to again and again. You're not alone in this practice. You are part of a long, winding story, a lineage of watchers and breathers and listeners, each one pausing for just a moment. You wake up, your hand reaches for your phone before your eyes even open. It's the skill of remaining composed in a world designed to pull you apart. It is not a rejection of technology or progress, but a refusal to let them own your inner life. The Stoics would understand this instantly. Marcus Aurelius led an empire, yet wrote of returning to himself as his only sanctuary. Today, we might call it mental rehearsal. Before your next meeting, ask, what emotions might arise? What thoughts might derail me? But this doesn't mean shutting your ears or closing your eyes. It means choosing which inputs to value. Today, that might mean turning off notifications for an hour. Not what is urgent, not what others demand, but what, if done with intention, would make today meaningful. That question is your mantra. Let it guide your action. Let it sift signal from noise, or looking at your food while eating, rather than your screen. A 3-minute timer, once a day, to simply sit. Yet each found a way to retreat inward, even when outwardly pressed. Raja Yoga too is built not for escape, but for return to the self, again and again. Reach for clarity. Stand still, breathe 5 times, slowly. Say, I return to myself, then begin again. To be conscious of breath is to be conscious of being. The Stoics had no word for prana, but their reverence for the breath was clear. Epictetus taught that we are disturbed not by events, but by our judgments about them. And judgment is shaped in the breath between impulse and action. This is not inefficiency, it's intelligence. You are no longer driven by chaos, you are driving. No goals, no performance, just sit. Let thoughts come and go like birds. Don't chase them, don't judge them. A breath, a glance at the sky, a whisper of this moment is enough. These are not small things. Not closing your eyes to avoid the world, but opening them, calmly, within it. They are sacred hinges upon which your entire day can turn. Stillness is not a mood, it is a choice. You might be walking, but are you aware of your footsteps? Between thought and word, between you and the world. Each breath a crossing, each pause a practice. Raja Yoga and Stoicism both understand that in a world of speed, slowing down is a form of strength. You might be eating, but are you tasting? You might be talking, but are you listening? Not just in silence, but in the middle of your meetings, not just in temples, but in traffic. You are not escaping life, you are entering it more deeply. This is not abstract, this is muscle memory, and it builds over time. Watch, in Raja Yoga, this is dhyana, meditation as steady observation. In Stoicism, it is ataraxia, a mind undisturbed. To traditions, one gesture, it's not rejection, it's refinement. You are curating your mind's diet. Then remind yourself, I can respond, not react. But Epictetus would likely disagree. He saw daily life as training ground. Every moment a chance to sharpen judgment, to temper impulse. You don't need incense to be mindful. You need presence. In traffic, in a meeting, in the split second before replying to a hurtful message, each of these is a chance to turn inward and respond from stillness, not from storm. This is not avoidance. It's mastery. You are learning to step back, not away. Notifications blink like fireflies in the dark. News, messages, a calendar full of appointments. And he had no inbox, no dopamine-fueled apps, no algorithms. But the principle remains. A scattered mind lives at the mercy of circumstance. A quiet corner with a single chair, a phone placed in another room during dinner. A journal by the bed, not to impress, but to confess. The world won't offer stillness, you have to shape it. The toddler in front of you is wailing. Your own thoughts spiral into stress. In that precise moment, meditation can occur not in some idealized version of your life, but right there. Take one breath, drop your shoulders, notice the ground beneath your feet. You're not ignoring life, you're entering it. Raja Yoga and Stoicism alike offer a different path. One of intentional attention, not forced focus. Of gentle returning, not rigid withdrawal. Your feet hit the floor, but your mind is already sprinting. And yet, before the day begins in full, imagine this, a pause. No app, no sound, no reply. Just 3 deep breaths, your body still, your awareness intact. In that sliver of time, the noise is no longer the master. This is Raja Yoga in the 21st century. It's not an escape into forests or temples. Modernity didn't invent distraction, it just mechanized it. Even 2,000 years ago, Seneca warned, to be everywhere is to be nowhere. Let's bring this down to daily practice. Imagine you're in a long grocery line. You've forgotten your list. The Stoics practiced something they called premeditation of adversity, imagining ahead of time what could go wrong, so they could greet it calmly. In Raja Yoga, there's a practice called pratyahara, withdrawal of the senses. Many people assume meditation must be long, formal, cross-legged. Try this each morning. Before opening your phone, ask one question: what is essential today? Or perhaps build a ritual. We might also reimagine our environments. Instead of designing for productivity, what if we designed for clarity? Remember, meditation doesn't begin with silence, it begins with noticing. The Stoics were not monks. Marcus governed. Seneca mentored emperors. Epictetus taught amidst noise and poverty, and return doesn't need to take hours. Here's a practice. Mid-afternoon, when your energy dips, don't reach for caffeine. In Hindu tradition, the breath is prana, life force. So, let your day be filled with these quiet bridges between stimulus and response. Stillness is not an empty space, it is a field of attention. And the more you walk across it, the stronger it grows. And perhaps that's the truest meditation of all. There's a quiet revolution happening not in the mountains, but in kitchens, on subways, during Zoom calls. It's the return to the breath, the attention, the center. Not everyone calls it Raja Yoga, not everyone names it Stoicism. But the essence is the same. Amid noise and motion, there are those who choose to pause. Choose a time: morning, lunch, evening. Sit or stand. Close your eyes if comfortable. Take a slow breath. Notice, where is your attention? What story is it telling you? Is it about the future? The past? Gently bring it back. No force, no judgment. Just return, again and again. That's the entire path. In the modern world, this could be as simple as listening fully to the person in front of you. Just one line. What guided me today? Fear or clarity? You are not your title, your agenda, your defense. You are simply presence, ready to listen and speak from calm. This is Svadhyaya self-study, one of the pillars of yoga. And in Stoicism, it's the practice of cultivating the inner citadel, a self that cannot be shaken. This is Stoic journaling in essence. It's not about performance, it's about tuning your compass. They may not change what happens around you, but they change your stance. Not just stillness in silence, but stillness in action. Not retreat from the world, but clear return to self. This is not about perfection, it's about practice. Every return matters, every breath counts. This, the Stoics and yogis would agree, is how freedom is built, not in one grand moment, but in 1,000 small ones, chosen with care. It's not a system you add on top of your life. It's a way of moving through it deliberately, mindfully, inwardly anchored. You're no longer pushed and pulled, you are grounded, steady. You don't need ideal conditions to be at peace. You carry the condition with you, and over time, that compass begins to turn you inward, homeward, again and again. No scrolling, no multitasking, just presence. The Stoics train this, too. In discourses, Epictetus tells students to practice daily, as if you were in the arena. Eat slowly, feel the food, taste it fully, not as indulgence but as presence. As Epictetus said, when you eat, eat. When you walk, walk. This is what the modern world often forgets. Doing one thing well is not wasted, is wisdom. Listening, speaking, deciding, all were seen as acts of philosophy. Not visible, but powerful. Over time, others may ask, why are you so steady? Try spending 5 minutes each evening with no goal. No productivity, just existing. Sit on the floor, listen to the hum of the night. Let your thoughts drift, do nothing, and discover how much that nothing holds. They may not know it, but they are seeing your yoga, your stoicism, your discipline not as control, but as compassion. Who step back for a moment, not to retreat, but to return. Let's begin here. Before reaching for your phone in the morning, place your hand over your heart, feel the rhythm. Ask softly, what do I wish to carry into this day? Not your to-do list, not your inbox, but your intention. This is Sankalpa in Yoga vow, not to the world, but to yourself. And it mirrors the Stoic habit of morning preparation. Marcus Aurelius began his day by reminding himself, today, I shall meet interference, ingratitude, insolence, not to dread it but to meet it with grace. In this practice, even brushing your teeth can become a meditation. You are not rushing to get somewhere, you are inhabiting each motion. The Stoics called it living according to nature, not as in trees and birds, but as in alignment with what is real, present, now. When you brush with presence, you train the mind to be where the body is. This is not spiritual fluff, it's psychological strength. One of the most accessible ways to begin a daily stoic practice is the 3-minute anchor. When you do this daily, something subtle happens. You begin to respond instead of react. You notice your anger before it speaks. You witness your anxiety before it consumes. This isn't magic, it's attention. Here is the invitation. Rather than curse the moment, enter it. Breathe, observe your body, relax your grip. Ask, can I practice stillness even here? This isn't resignation, it's reclaiming your peace. The outer world hasn't changed, but you have. And attention, said both Patanjali and Epictetus, is the root of wisdom. Let's look at a modern scenario. You're in traffic, horns blaring, you're late. Your chest tightens. Raja Yoga teaches Dharan holding the mind to a single point. You might write a daily reflection at night, not a long journal. A few more rituals before entering a meeting. Pause at the door. Take a breath. Let go of any identity you cling to. Or take your lunch break. Instead of scrolling, go outside. The beauty of these small rituals is that they stack. They build a kind of inner muscle. There's also the practice of aparanihita from Buddhist tradition, meaning no agenda. Now imagine your entire day stitched together with these quiet moments. This is the quiet superpower of Raja Yoga for the modern Stoic, and if you miss a day, or forget to pause, don't treat it as failure. As we near the end of this journey, take one more breath. Slow, unforced. Let your shoulders soften and your gaze rest on nothing in particular. The world around you, your home, your devices, your responsibilities has not changed. But perhaps, just perhaps, your relationship to them has begun to shift. Because at the heart of both Raja Yoga and Stoic philosophy lies not escape, but engagement. A new kind of engagement, one that begins from within, where the goal is not to silence the world, but to stop letting it govern your mind. It grows not in temples or caves alone, but in kitchens and commutes, in meetings and marketplaces. It grows each time you decide not to be swept away by noise, but to meet life from center, to recognize that amidst the movement of days and the clamor of notifications, there is a space in you untouched by urgency. This space is not empty, it is aware, it is calm, and it's always been there, waiting for you to notice. Think back to Marcus Aurelius, riding by lantern light in a military camp, reminding himself that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts, or to Patanjali, describing yoga as the cessation of the whirlpools of the mind. It's available to you, right now, in the shape of 3 minutes of silence, in a breath before you speak, in the way you choose to begin your morning, not by reacting, but by remembering who you are, what matters, what doesn't, to traditions, thousands of miles and years apart, echoing the same truth. The quality of your inner life determines how you walk through your outer one. And this truth doesn't belong to ancient sages alone, not as a punishment, but as a return. The Stoics call it discipline, Raja Yoga calls it liberation. Both lead to the same place, a mind no longer ruled by every impulse, a heart no longer hostage to chaos. And perhaps the most powerful question you can carry from here is this: when was the last time you sat in stillness, not to escape life, but to fully enter it? Let that question echo. Let it guide you, and let your return to yourself be the quiet revolution you carry into every day. Stillness, as both the Stoics and yogis knew, is not something you earn by withdrawing from the world. It is something you practice while fully within it. So, the next time you feel overwhelmed, ask, where is my attention right now? And then, with gentleness, bring it back. Thank you for walking this journey with us. See you in the next meditation.